Welcome back to the metaverse. It's your boys Nathan and Sean back at it with another episode of Enter the Metaverse. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we're November 22nd. I got my Movember stash going.
yeah.
And uh
I never can grow a stash that looks nice enough to grow. Like it's not even worth growing. Like I just had one before I came on and I shaved because I looked terrible. So
yeah, just these last couple years I started being able to grow a decent mustache, which is pretty cool.
that's
Uh,
exciting.
yeah, last year in November I went to Myanmar on a mission trip. And I remember them talking about like the history a little bit of Myanmar and how like the British had kind of taken over. You know how the British had settlements or colonies or whatever it was, right? And so I remember him talking about it, and I asked about my mustache because he said you look like the white people that you know from our history, and I said, oh, like um would this like maybe upset people, or do you think like is it a bad idea for me to have a mustache on? He's like, no, 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 like people around here actually really like the British. They've done a lot for us.
Okay.
Like they really helped kind of progress their society, I guess, and which I found to be very interesting. And I told that to some of my friends who are like very like decolonial, you know what I mean? And this is a good kind of intro into what we're going to be talking about because I'm going to talk a little bit about some indigenous stuff that I've been researching. I just these this last 2 weeks I finished school, so I'm doing my practicum with the Fraser River Indigenous Society. So I'm really immersing myself into this culture of the indigenous, right? And I already know a lot about the history, you know, not a lot, but I know some of the history of Canada and the indigenous issues and all about colonialism and stuff. And so I always saw it in such a negative lens, and I always heard about it in such a negative sight, like, the white people came and just like were terrible people, right? And so it was really interesting hearing this story from this guy, like him saying, no,
Yeah.
like we actually uh, really liked and respected the British when they came here. So I found that to be really interesting.
I think
Um,
what like you just got a taste of a balanced criticism
hmm,
because like we were saying before, it's good to have that contrast of certain points of view from certain different people.
hmm,
Because like when we are talking about COVID before, we would say like it's good to have a balanced opinion of this, like saying like yes, it's killing a lot of people, but also look at the recovery rate and like I, how I'm comparing that to this is like a lot of people see it in a negative light. You just said, but they were saying it in a positive light. So
hmm. Well, I think that's kind of how we operate here at the metaverse, it seems, right? Like it seems like what we try to do is gain as much perspective on something as we can, and nothing's really black and white. That's what I'm learning a lot about this indigenous stuff too. Like even what I learned in history and what I've thought to be issues or history or whatever it is, like I'm learning that I don't really know a whole lot, and like we don't really know a whole lot, and so I'm trying to immerse myself into the culture more, and like, and it's working a lot. I'm reading this book called uh, Indigenous
yes,
Methodologies. It was recommended to me um, by the executive director, and what it's trying to do is make you think like an indigenous person, right? Like it's saying the way that we think is through a specific lens, like a Western type lens, like even just the idea of how we think and how we're so rational and stuff. This is much more what she's trying to do in this book, it seems, is kind of what we do, like recognize that um, there's experience and context to things, but especially like a spiritual side. There's a tribal side, like a culture side, right? And we embody certain knowledges in different ways, and it can really make it difficult to tackle some big issues when you have a different outlook on things, right? So I do find it very difficult to talk these days about indigenous issues because it's such a loaded, like it's such a loaded subject, and
Yeah.
people are so emotionally tied to it and have um, certain ideas, but not just ideas, like like factual. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is what it is, right? There is no other side. I know what I'm talking about, and you don't, kind of thing, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm learning so much because I used to think I knew a lot of stuff, and now, anyways,
So what are some of the things that's going on right now that like political in with the indigenous? Like
okay.
before they were arresting people, I don't know, all over Canada, I think it was. I don't know where it was.
Well, there's always issues going on in different areas. Like locally, there was that protest that was happening, uh, and there's been a couple protests. Like one's the pipeline, right? Right now,
Mhm.
people are still protesting the pipeline. Like somebody I've been working with has close connections to the people who are protesting, and they're like looking for provisions and stuff. Still, they're living up, like they're living in the protest, almost, kind of
Okay.
thing. And so there's still a lot of stuff going on. The the big thing that I think really made me try to think was when I was talking to one of the older men that I work with, and he was telling me a little bit about the Indian Act, right? So it's really funny how Canada claims to be this like progressive and like inclusive
Multicultural.
society,
Yeah.
yet one of our documents, our founding documents, right now that's still in circulation is this Indian Act, right? And like, so there's legal status Indians and stuff like that. And it's so funny how calling an indigenous person an Indian now is it's almost tantamount to us like uh, not a swear, I don't know, like saying the N word almost, right? It's like it's getting into that category of like hate speech almost.
Okay, yeah.
Yet one of our like principal documents, it's littered all over, and technically speaking, like those indigenous people, according to the government right now, the government sees them as Indians, technically speaking, like through this document, right? And so he was telling me, and I never really thought about this much, but he was telling me how right now the biggest problem is that um, there is a racist document still being used, um, and part of the problem with it is that there's provisions for it, right? Like, so the Indians, because that's what this document uh, calls them,
Yeah.
right? They have certain rights that are a lot different than us, right? They're treated much differently. Like they have certain tax breaks, certain land owning possessions and things like that. But there's a lot to it. Like it's huge. And so he was telling me how sometimes it can seem like there's good things in there, right? Like he's saying that there's things in there that seem beneficial to the indigenous people, but in reality, that's not the way it is. And it's almost like I was kind of asking. It's almost like a cloak and mirror kind of thing, like
Yeah.
smoke, like kind of
It's a
just
delusion.
trying.
It's like a
It's like an
distraction for
illusion,
what
yeah.
what they really want to take
Hmm.
advantage of, right? Like they're just trying to give you like, here, we'll give you this, well, we'll take this from you.
So after having this conversation, I talked to the executive director because we're kind of working hand in hand on what I'm going to do for my practicum, right? So right now I'm just helping with random tasks and certain things that need to get done. Like we did a food drive last week. We delivered food hampers to different uh, families, especially like young mothers and stuff like that who
Hmm.
need some help this holiday season. And so I'm doing a lot of stuff like that, but I wanted to do like almost a research paper. I told her, I said, like, after reading this, like getting into this book and thinking about what this man said, I'm like, how does Canada, how is it not, if we're going to talk about all this progressive stuff and like be like a shining light of progression, and we're, you know, we're not racist and all that kind of stuff, and we want to make forward changes, like the first thing should be attacking this document, like reconstructing it, right? Like just get rid of the Indian Act and recreate something that's better, that fits people. I mean, that's a huge task to complete, and obviously the government will not want to do it. Like, you know, that could just change everything, really. But it is what should happen, or what should be at least considered, or in the works. It should be at least in the works. And so I was saying how, like, I wanted to do a research paper on this, on like how to kind of deconstruct this Indian Act and
Mm.
create a new one that's more feasible, right? And like obviously that's way too big of a task for me. Like even of course when I was thinking about it and saying it, like that's like, you know, like that's like a master's paper or
But
something like
my
that. Like
question
that's a big
is,
task.
yeah, sorry. My
Go
I
ahead.
interrupt, but my question is, would there ever be an act that's actually good enough? But I know like it would be
I don't
better,
know. Mm,
but would it be like there's so much like
no.
rights that are not there, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what.
don't know. And it could be worse, you know, like people could use the opportunity to really do, like, to take advantage or do something that they shouldn't do, right? So it could be even worse. I don't
Hmm.
know. I mean, but it's at least something that should be addressed. Anyways, I'm moving away from that because there's no way I can do that. And I'm probably not going to work here. Like I'm gaining a lot of experience, and there are a lot of issues. Like, you know, I learned in school, like the indigenous people have a much higher rate of so many different things, right? Like poverty, addiction, you know, like there's just the scale is crazy in Canada. Like if you have indigenous in you, you're more likely to be in these uh, different difficult life situations, right? So
Okay.
uh, often a lot of social work is geared towards indigenous people because they need the services, and um, so it's a big, like, it's a big need in this community. But um, I don't know. I kind of want to go more in towards working with kids and youth and stuff, and
Are you
so
working
we'll
with
see.
Indigenous youth right now?
No, I haven't been. And that's the thing with this job is so far it's been so much like it's been more paperwork than I want. You know what I mean? Like it's not as much on the front lines, like, outreach and finding people. And like I've done a little bit where I got to deliver some of these food hampers, and there's connecting people and organizing resources and stuff like that. And so it's all helpful and needed, but it's not really it's not my forte. I want to be more like hands on, meeting people, talking to people. And so, um, yeah, I'm thinking of, just finishing this up. I've got 2 weeks left. I'm going to try to finish this book, or at least get like halfway by the end of practicum. And because I am learning a lot with it, it's great. And it's really aligning with my thinking, right? I do feel like I almost think like an indigenous. The reason I joined this organization for my practicum is because it's like the catalyst for going to school. I think I talked to you about Dancing Water. Remember him on the street in
Yes,
Vancouver
yes.
when I met him? That was the catalyst for me going to school. And then when I met the executive director for this organization at a homeless camp, like we just talked about her organization. I said I'd love to do a practicum, right? Like I feel very at home with the indigenous people, and I mean, as far as I can tell, they're just much more friendly. Like just seems to be that way. Like more open-hearted and honest and caring and stuff, as opposed to like even this organization. It seems that way. Everybody there is so great. Like it's unfortunate that I don't see myself aligning really with the work, but like all the people are so nice and friendly, and so it's been really good for sure.
Well, that's good. I wanted to kind of change the topic a little bit,
Yeah. Well, how's
because
your week been? Do you want to?
like, well, yeah, I joined a counseling session,
Mm,
and I went like I just wanted to take one thing from that counseling is that um she says that my like when we talk about the power of our words and stuff like that, and like how they have
Yeah.
power and stuff. And what we say has power. Like I always have like wait, here we go again. I have a habit of saying always or never in a negative
Mm,
light,
mm.
and when you have absolutes, then you're like blocking off opportunities.
I
So
never like speaking in absolutes. I
see, there we go.
find I
But
don't.
you just said it. You never. So, but then it's like
Exactly.
that's in a
Yes.
positive. But
Yeah, that's right. That's funny. That's good.
yeah,
I make an effort to not speak with absolutes. I do. I really do. And because I hear what you're saying exactly. Like, why should I say never? Because sometimes, right? Or
hmm
why should I say always? Because nothing's always,
hmm
right? And it's almost like an exaggeration. And I don't like to exaggerate because exaggerating is kind of like bending the truth. And I try to be as
yeah.
truthful as I can be,
Cause
right?
like when I hear my father, he talks about he believes a lot of stereotypes about people.
Mm,
He's old fashioned, so it's just the way it is. He is. So he'd be like,
mm,
"Oh, this person's this way, so they must be like this because most of them are like this or always like this." And I'm
mm,
like, that's not even that's just like that's just a stereotype. It doesn't mean it's like that person could look that way, but they could be born in this country. Doesn't mean they're this, right? Or maybe their background's that, but
mm.
like doesn't mean I don't want to say the actual names, but like
Yeah.
um yeah, like not all stereotypes are true.
Yeah, I think like I was thinking about my father too, and the way he used to speak. Like this week, I had a really emotional day one time. I was like really reflecting, looking back on actually what came to me was a joke that my dad used to say. I heard him say it at least once, maybe twice. Like he might have said it twice, but I remember specifically hearing him say this joke, and it's a racist joke, right? And I want to say it, like I want to tell you this
Okay.
joke because he said, and this is how he said it too. He said, "Where, um, where do you hide an Indian's keys in his work boots?" Like it's like a joke on how indigenous people don't work hard or something like that, right?
Okay.
And I was just like, and it really like kind of jarred me thinking back to some of the language he used to use about indigenous people. And
Mhm.
like my dad was a really open and caring guy. And I don't think he said that joke maliciously. Like, and I'm sure he would be really considerate when he would use it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like it is a lot of jokes are racist, right? Like that's uh, we don't really say them as much anymore. But I remember growing up and like so many jokes were about races, right, and whatnot. And but I wonder what his perspective was on indigenous people, and if he did stereotype, right? If he did think that, oh, they don't work and stuff like that, right? And I think the Indian Act,
Can
um,
we pause for a sec? Sorry about that. You were saying the Indian Act.
yeah, I think the Indian Act might even create that kind of thinking, right? In the sense that what people on like the other side of the fence, though, white people might see some of these things like tax breaks or like educational opportunities, right? And stuff like that. They might see it through that lens and be like, oh, they get all these things and stuff just because of their skin and whatnot, right? So I think the Indian Act itself can create almost an animosity on the other side because of some of the benefits that come from it. Now, um, if that's all you're gonna like, clearly there's so many deficits, right? But if all you see is the benefits, and you kind of create a stereotype of what these people are like, right? And I wonder what my dad, he was never racist or really like anything like that, but sometimes he said stuff about indigenous people that, like thinking back, I was kind of like, whoa, like what was my perspective on indigenous people and stuff
But
like
also you
that,
got to
right?
look at it this way cuz like if you look at I mean it was never ever acceptable to say these things,
Mm-hmm.
but the times that we grew up in, like things were different back then, you know?
Yeah, yeah, they
So
were.
I
I
mean,
know.
if you're saying these things now, then they're not acceptable, of course.
Hmm.
And they were never acceptable. But like, people just got away with things
Hmm.
that they weren't. Because it's just I can't. I'm not justifying anything, but
No, of course not. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing I think about my dad, and he was just like he liked to laugh a lot. And so he would tell jokes, and a lot of times jokes are racist, right? Like, and sometimes he said some jokes in bad taste, and not at the right time and stuff like that. That was kind of his character. He was always joking. He was never really serious. He was always like always being silly kind of thing. And
I think
it
that
bugged my mom so much. It was so funny. But
yeah,
anyways, yeah.
but like I think it happens on both ends of the spectrum. People joke like
Sure,
back in like
sure.
maybe not now, but like I don't know, probably.
But
But
but just thinking about some of these, like that's one example. Like I remember him talking about. I remember something on at the time on the news about like an indigenous elder stealing all the money that the government gives like for like the reservation or whatever. Or like the government allots some certain money to use for their tribe or their families or whatever it is. And it was in the news that this one chief like stole it all, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm just thinking about these different scenarios and how they create a perspective for me and and how he thought and felt about these things. And it was really an emotional week kind of thinking about all this stuff and being a part of the culture and seeing that really like indigenous peoples are hurting right now. Like this is a difficult time for them. I mean, this is a difficult time for everybody in general. There's
Yeah.
so like if you go down East Hastings and stuff, and if you go in Maple Ridge, like if you go into the more poor areas, like you're gonna see a lot of indigenous people, like a much higher ratio uh, than
Mhm.
white people, right? Like way against the the actual numbers of what's in Canada. And so um, right now, it's especially hard for people who are on the streets or those who are in poverty, like fighting for um, just getting a job, right? People are losing jobs and stuff like that, and money, and so those people are getting affected a lot more than you might think. So there's just so many. I mean, it can't fix the world, right? But um,
Well, that there's the I can'ts, and then
well, I don't think, yeah,
I like to
I don't think
replace.
I can fix the world. Like maybe the little things that I do, like I can improve the world. I believe that I can improve the world, but I don't think anybody, like, I don't care what happens. It seems to me that the world's not going to be perfect. It's just never going to be like that. And
Yeah,
things can, yeah.
like
So I
words.
can't do it. I'm just
Well,
a man.
yeah, I'd like to replace the I can't. I learned this from a guy named Dan Locke. He's a business motivational speaker slash a lot of things. Anyway, he talks about words you shouldn't say, like most,
Mm,
like ever, really,
mm.
and like what you should replace these words with. And he was saying like, if you say I can't, take that out of your vocabulary and say how can I. So like for example, be like I
How can
can't.
I change the world?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how no, how can I
How can I
how
perfect the world?
not perfect, like that's another
Yeah,
word. I think that not even perfection is not even on the
exactly.
vocabulary either. How
Yeah.
can I make the world better? How can I make the world not perfect, but
So the reason I even put that in there, like why I say I can't, because with me, the bigger problem I have is saying I can. Like I kind of almost sometimes have a very grandiose perspective of myself. Like
mm,
I think highly of myself often. Like
that's a good thing.
when
But it could kind of dangerous
yeah,
too.
that's it is kind of dangerous. And that's what I mean. Like when I go out with people, like often I feel um like I'm above them, even though I don't want to think that. Like maybe whatever it is, like more mature, I guess you'd almost say, right? Like when they're complaining to me about their itty bitty problems, kind of thing, right? I just think in my head, like, oh man, like if you had my life, like, and I try to get away from that, right? So
Mm,
when I say like something like I can't, it's because often I feel like I have a high perspective of myself. I feel like I can do so much, and if I want something to get done, I believe like, uh, and I think, and it, like it could get done. I feel like I have a way of getting it done, right? And so sometimes it's nice to just ground myself in things that I can't do, right? And so it's almost like in a sense of just shutting that right out, like, right, just reminding myself. It's almost like it's trying to humble myself. Still though,
Mm.
you're right. Like I still shouldn't use it. That's a good thing to think about. Like
Because like
I should not use I can't. That's not
yeah,
a good, that's just not a good thing to say.
like cuz like my friend was saying like, "Oh, I can't get this job because I'm working this job and I have no time. I can't." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you ask the question, how can I
Yeah.
get this job instead of putting a statement out and be like, ask the question to people who offer you jobs, who know about jobs, who like,
Right.
how can you do this? Like there's always a way. And like if you have no time, quit your job. If there's a guarantee you're gonna get the other job, like there's always a way. If other
Yeah.
people have got out of your situation, and I bet you many people quit your job to get another different job, or like that's just an example, but like like people have got out of your situation to become better at something else. So
Sorry, I just
I'm not
hear the
talking
people
about.
upstairs. We're
Oh,
walking around. Sorry, it was distracting.
oh okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, of of course that's not really a good mindset to be like, I can't do this, I can't do that. You're totally right. Like, how can I is a better way to go about things. And see, but I'm not like that. I'm way more often like I can. And it's just sometimes I feel like in today's society, especially like with the whole social media, is sometimes we feel like we need to fix the world's problems, right? And it's true, we do. But I think we need to be more patient, right? And remember that these problems are a lot bigger than us, and that
I think the patience part. I mean, like with COVID, I'm just changing the topic a little bit, but like with
sure.
COVID, yes, we have to be patient with that. We have to be patient with COVID. Certain things we have to be patient with, but other things we don't have to be patient with. To be honest, I think we've been patient too much, especially with the indigenous people. They've been way beyond patient, like
Sure.
beyond belief, and like their time is now, and they need to take action, and like they need to do it not forcefully. Like they have to do it
Mhm.
smart way,
Mhm.
and and it
It's a
involves a
big
lot of.
task.
It's a big task, but
Yeah.
they need to have like a collective of people that
Yeah.
are assigned duties to do certain things to get things
Well,
done. So
right now I'm kind of working in it, and I've got a heart for like clearly I see there's an issue, and I'm trying to make sense of it, and I'd like to benefit in whatever way I can. Um, I would have to be patient in the sense of like I can't I don't believe I could fix these issues right now. I believe if I'm going to make a difference and fix some of these issues, it's going to be like I'm going to have to put aside like years, right? And like really like immerse myself more, like probably take a job here, right? And take like a few years to really ground myself, get some credentials and build up like but what I can do in the meanwhile is learn and share and just try to get a better grasp on what I know, like, because that was that was what really changed me. I thought I knew some of the indigenous issues, right? And now I'm learning. Just even these last 2 weeks, I'm learning more and more. And so, what it made me think about too is like how we can connect this kind of to this propaganda piece, because you want to talk about propaganda, right?
yes, modern
And
modern
so,
part propaganda more than history propaganda, because
sure.
a lot of people know about history propaganda and they think, oh, that's in the past. We don't have propaganda anymore. Like we
Mm,
live on a day-to-day
no
basis
way.
where there's
No
propaganda
way.
everywhere. So
Oh, totally. Well, propaganda is just like what um it's what we believe through the influences we get, right? And
mhm.
so there's all different sorts of propaganda and how it works. And um, so a lot of thinking on these indigenous issues is propaganda too, right? Like what a lot of the times it's not something open for interpretation, especially modern news and politics and stuff, and just social
Hidden
media,
agendas and
how we
social media.
how we share with people, how we share information is not very much like open for interpretation. It's almost like somebody is telling you how you must interpret this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's propaganda right there. Somebody giving you a piece of information and telling you
You must
how
believe
you're
it this
supposed to
way.
think about it. Yeah, and so I mean, we see that all the time. Like I see it all the time. I could open up my Facebook and find somebody sharing a news article and telling me how I'm supposed to think about it. And then another person, I have a very wide range of friends on my Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And then having the next person share the exact same thing and telling me the complete opposite of how I should think about it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so there's so much of this like um, almost kind of like what you were saying, this I can't, or like this absolute of how you must think about
Believe.
certain
Yeah.
things, or how you must act about certain things. And yeah, I think it's pretty dangerous. I mean, propaganda, of course, is dangerous. It's fueled wars for history, and I know you don't want to get into the history, but like television was when it first came out, when television first came out, like there was articles from politicians. I think Hitler wrote something famous about how the invention of the television is like how he is going to take over. So it was something along those lines, right? Like the television was the biggest kind of propaganda tool that you could use,
And it
and
still is.
exactly, it still is, but politicians recognized it back then and talked about it back then. But now I feel like we're not talking about it, and we have all these screens shoved in our face, and we're not talking about how we are taking this information and how we're interpreting it. And
I think a lot of people like that are older generation, um, they think, not all of them, but a lot of them are like they have a certain way of believing things, like because of the way they're grown up, and they they get lost in this news stream and stuff like that, and
mhm.
they don't they kind of lose a little bit of common sense when it comes to what is actually being told. Is this a lie, or is this the truth, or should you just believe everything I hear? You know?
I think uh, part of the problem is that all of us, older people, the older generation, and the younger people, are all like that. The thing is, though, is that the older people are much more in tune to the news. Younger people aren't, it's almost like our attention span is all over the place. But
Hmm.
like most of my family, like if I go to a family dinner or something, um, and the older men in the family, wherever we go, whoever's house it is, usually on the television is the news. Like if it's the evening, they're watching the news, right? Whereas us younger people, like we're not really sitting around watching the news. It just doesn't seem that way to me, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so of course we're gonna have kind of these different levels of thinking and how we take these things. It seems there's totally generation gaps, right? So my kind of thought, what I want to also include on that idea of the generation gap is that I do think that these indigenous issues and a lot more issues are going to get tackled once the baby boomer
Boomer.
generation dies out. I think in 20 years, because most of that kind of old style thinking, it seems to be nested in the baby boomer generation. And
Well,
so
I
I
think
think
we're having a second generation of baby boomers right now.
hmm, well, once our generation, I think, yeah, once kind of the millennials or maybe the one after us, once they start getting some maturity, like into, because after you got to be at least like 30 or 40 to start, piecing things together and recognizing how the world works and the balance that's necessary for a society, and
Well, on
how
average, I guess maybe.
I don't know. I just think it takes some life experience to really start seeing how it works. And so I think like once our generation or the next generation kind of gets to that point where they can start seeing how their progressive thinking, they can now start incorporating that into, say, law or mandates or revisiting the Indian Act and stuff like that. I think once the wisdom uh, of that generation can match the tenacity to change things, I think that that's when the real change is going to happen. And right now, there's just too many old people. Like, I shouldn't speak in absolutes, right?
Yes,
But
yeah.
it seems to me that a lot of the older people in my life, and from what I see from uh, social media, that they are a little more into the old school type thinking, right?
Hmm.
And kind of like thinking like we said, when we were kids, and those kind of racist jokes, they were just a thing, right?
Hmm.
Their entire life they grew up with that type of thing just being a thing. It's no big deal, right? Like, I'm not actually racist, it's just a joke, like I don't um um want to hurt those people. But like we've been talking about, we understand the power of words, right? And so even though it is a joke, right, and it's important to laugh, and don't get me wrong, I love to laugh.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need some tasteful jokes, and sometimes you kind of want to push the boundaries for laughter, right? Like, I like
I
doing
think,
that
yeah,
sometimes.
I think there's a time and a place for certain things. But if
Hmm.
you're doing it like all the time to spite people, then that's when you're
No,
crossing the
that's
line.
not good. No, that's no good. And a lot of people do that, right? They almost want to get a rise out of other people and have a moment to kind of flex their knowledge or information. I've seen it. It seems to me, I feel like we've talked about this before, how there seems to be like a great divide, almost like the Trumpists and, like, progressives, or whatever you'd call them. How would you almost put it?
I wouldn't use
Anyways,
that example, but
no, no, no. But there seems to be like this divide,
left
because
and
I know
right.
people in my life who are like either not like pro Trump, but like pro like what he stands for, at least, right? And like business and our country, and like take care of us, and we need better economic policies and things like that. And socialism's terrible. And then you have the other side, like, oh, socialism's the greatest thing, and you guys are all evil people, and Trump needs to burn in hell, and things like that, right? And you kind of have these two people on the
Left and
it's just
right.
what I've noticed. What's that?
Left and right.
Yes, exactly. A left and a right. But there seems to be this great chasm, you know? And I've seen it play out. Like, I've watched conversations between these two different types of people, right? And it's crazy how something like that can just tear people apart, and tear. I I know you've kind of experienced some of that kind of stuff too,
Yeah,
you know.
well, like I was trying to raise a point. I don't remember what it was, but I was raising a point, and then they were just laughing at it because they're like, they think it's just a big joke, and I'm like, man, people are like dying. People are like, this is people's lives, like this is a serious matter, and they're just
Yeah.
laughing at it like, oh no, just vote whoever 2020, right? It's like, no, 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 no. Like I think like I the American politics is just so
Yeah.
it's just so
But even Canadian politics, man, is it's quite something. Like, watching, I am not a fan of Trudeau. Like, I'm not a fan really of the only politicians. When we had the election, I
mhm.
voted Green Party for Elizabeth May. She was the only one in the um, debate, the election debate, that's like actually had something to say. I
Is this for the
watched.
provincial?
No, no, federal. This
Oh,
was
okay.
when
My bad.
Trudeau got elected. Um, you I was thinking about voting NDP, but Jagmeet Singh, he was talking like the politicians too. They were all just saying fluff. it was nothing of substance. They were not answering questions properly. They were answering in the way that they wanted to, like they were spinning it
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost like they wrote out an answer. But Elizabeth May was the only one that seemed to me
Straight
like
up, no filter.
competent, mature, no filter, honest, and passionate. The rest of them had, it seemed like, no passion other than trying to deface each other. Like that's the only feeling of passion that I got from them, right?
And I,
And
I, I hate it when, like, especially the Green Party, when they, not the Green Party, but like when people talk about voting for the Green Party, oh, you must be like this, you must believe in
mm,
that. It's
mhm,
like, what are you talking about? They're another party. They've been around for so long. They stand up for
mhm.
like environmental, like a lot. They stand up for a lot. Like they're like, and there's such a stigma around voting for Green.
Well, I voted for Green. I vote. I've always voted. Every time there's a vote, I cast a ballot, and I voted for Green more than any other party actually. And it usually
Okay.
just comes down to stuff like this. Like, so one thing I would say is that totally right now, like if the Green Party were to take over, like, um, in charge, I don't think they'd do a good job. They don't have um, enough people in the positions to do a good job, right? Like Elizabeth May was great, um, but what I believe though is in me casting my vote, the more votes that they get, the more people will join their party. You know what I mean? Like the more leaders will join their
Mm-hmm.
party. Because if I'm a young guy and I'm thinking about getting into politics, like I'm thinking about trying to run for an MP, and like what why would I join the Green Party if I actually want to win, right? Like if there's a choice, I'm going to go either NDP, liberal, or conservative because I'm more likely to get voted in for there. But so my vote right now is almost like a vote for the future in the sense of if this party can keep getting more votes, more people with leadership qualities that want to lead and make a difference, especially considering it's the Green Party, like that mix of those two things in 20 years, I do think the Green Party could be a, a strong party.
I think like your vote, yeah, voting for Green every single time, it's gonna make a difference for sure. And also like word of mouth, saying you voted,
Right.
and and showing their promises and stuff like that, what they stand for, like
Yeah.
supporting them completely, like full on activism, like in a way, I guess. I guess that's the word. I don't know, but
Yeah. I
anyway.
mean, of course they're not perfect, but yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to say, like gradually those numbers will go up, and then they'll show like maybe they do have a chance this year, right?
Yeah.
Whatever year that may be, maybe it's next election, possibly.
Mhm.
Like, and then like if they show, even if they didn't win that time, then people will be like, wow, that they had such a close call. Maybe we should vote for them this time. Maybe we'll get in.
Dude, do you know how many, like, I know so many people. I mean, strategic voting is like a big thing. I know so many people who would like to vote for Green Party, but they'll vote for NDP or something like that, right? Because they see them as having a better chance at beating the liberals or whatever it is, right? Like
Hmm.
they vote for the party that mostly aligns with their thinking, that actually has a chance at getting in. So totally, if in years to come the Green Party's votes keep going up and they start getting closer to the other parties, people are going to be like, oh well, maybe I should just vote for this party then because they have just as much likelihood of winning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So people
yeah,
think, a lot of people don't think that way. They think like, I gotta
yeah.
vote for this because they're gonna lose if I don't vote, because this other person's gonna win, and they're not. The
Whoa.
green has no chance.
Do you know how many times I had to explain this? Because I vote all the time and I talk openly about politics. Like, if you don't want to, if you don't want to tell me who you want to vote for, we don't have to talk about it. You know what, that
Mm.
kind of thing, right? But if somebody wants to talk about what's going on and, oh, who are you going to vote for? I'll tell them. And so many times people were saying, oh, you're just wasting your vote. And I'll explain this to them because I don't think people should think that that's a wasted vote,
No.
right? I don't think that's, and I personally, when they tell me that they're voting for this party because the strategic voting kind of thing, I say, I can't do what you're doing. Like I can't put my name on a ballot for somebody I don't want to run the country,
Hmm.
right? Like I have to put my name on the ballot of somebody who I want. I don't
Yeah,
care
it's an
if
honest
they're not
vote.
going to get in or not. Yeah, an honest vote. That's what I have. That's the only way I can vote. And when everybody's doing all the strategic voting, I try to tell them that. I try to say like, hey, what if all of you people who are strategically voting actually voted for who you wanted? Maybe they would win, right? Like
Exactly, right?
it's just there's so many different pieces as to why I don't think that type of voting should be condoned and like encouraged. It's often encouraged, and I don't believe that that's right. I don't think that's right. I think you should just vote for who you think, and whether regardless of whether they're going to win or not, especially because it'll help them in the future. If you believe in the party, your vote for them it matters, right? And
Yeah.
um but anyways,
And I
I've
think,
thought about,
yeah.
you
Go
know,
ahead.
like getting involved more with the Green Party because I always vote for them, you know.
Well, I had a friend who was a volunteer for the NDP, and he was a volunteer for a long time. I don't know if he still is. I don't know if he has a job there or something, but he was going hard for many years, and then he started his own video YouTube channel and or Facebook channel or something, and
Mm,
he's always he stands for what he believes in. So
mhm.
I mean, like it's an option.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think like the Green Party would be maybe a party that would start considering some of these indigenous issues, right? But that's a big responsibility, right? And so a lot of people would say, "Oh, no way that they could tackle that," right? And right now they couldn't. I don't think they just don't have the leadership capability. But give it 10 years. Some of these younger people who are passionate, who are getting involved in politics, and who start maturing and understanding how there needs to be a balance, right? Like you can't necessarily just tear up the roots,
I
right?
think
Like
like
you have
give
to.
yeah, putting a number on it. I mean, it's good to set deadlines,
I'm
but
just I'm just thinking out loud.
yeah, you're saying
It's
10 years, but I think that's too
yeah, that's
patient.
oh man, I think that's like I think I'm being optimistic here personally. Like I don't think it's moving that fast. I would love it to move that fast in 10 years, but realistically I think it's a little bit further. But I do think it'll happen, and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do my best, and that's just my guess. 10 years is when Green Party might start. I don't know who they're going to replace Elizabeth May with,
Yeah.
because I think she's leaving.
I think that if you want change, like you have to be active about it, right? So,
Hmm.
um, and you have to be pushy sometimes. Not like in maybe not in public, but like just networking and getting out like the word out. If you want change to happen faster than 10 years, you're gonna have to do something about it, right? So
So I just want to say on that aspect, like kind of like what we were talking about, I feel like there's just so many things that I would like to change or push forward, but um, so like, oh, okay, I'm passionate about the Green Party. I should go and volunteer with them. It's like, well, that would mean I couldn't, get involved with the Indigenous Society, right? It's almost like we have to. I feel like we need to understand our limits and kind of learn how to focus where we can make the best contribution to a passion we care about. You know what I mean?
I know
Because
what you mean, yeah.
if I tackle all these things at once, I'm either going to burn out or I'm not going to do any of them effectively, right? And so I might want to change the world, but I need to focus on one thing to change right now to actually be as effective as I can,
I
right?
think that medicine is good for yourself right now, to be honest, because I always notice you like to tackle a lot of things at once.
Yeah,
Like you like to do this podcast, you like to do your schooling, you like to do your band, you like to do God knows what else.
yeah,
But
a lot of things.
a lot of things. I mean, you like to be busy, you like to keep busy. But it doesn't mean that whatever your path you're on right now, it doesn't mean it's gonna be set in stone. That's gonna get what you're gonna do the whole time.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
you have lots of time, but you also have to give yourself rest, and you have to give yourself reflection. So
Yeah.
try not to
Resting.
juggle too much at once.
Yeah, we definitely need rest and reflection.
I need to keep myself more busy, but
Right.
it's hard with the stress, and it's possible. It's possible to keep myself more busy, and I'm working on that. I'm like I said, I just got a DJ controller. I actually bought an actual one, and I'm very excited to playing on that. Learning,
Yeah, dude.
I've been learning. Yeah.
I'm so stoked to jam with you. We got
Mhm.
to get in the jam studio and work on some tunes.
Yeah.
I want to see that thing.
It's neat. It's neat. I got to get a taller desk though, because like I don't like sitting down the entire time, and like
You
it's
should really, you should get a desk or something that you can carry with you for
mhm.
like gigs, like almost like a gig kind of thing where you're standing. You shouldn't be sitting and doing
Of
that.
course,
You
of
really
course.
shouldn't be standing
Last
up.
time I
Yeah,
was sitting because the chair was, I mean, not
the
the
height.
chair, the height of the desk was way too
Yeah.
short. I actually I actually bought a stand for my laptop too, that it's like it raises up because I can't put my laptop on the same level of the
Mm.
desk because it's not enough space. So the stand goes underneath the DJ
Yeah.
controller on,
Oh,
but
that's
then it's
cool.
like on the side, so like it's not hanging on top of it, but it's on the side.
Mm.
So it's pretty. I have to show you a picture later, but yeah,
Yeah,
like
cool.
I've been doing that, and because we didn't really get into how my week was, but yeah, I've been doing counseling, um, and I joined the gym a couple weeks ago. I think I told you this.
But you're back at the gym, so that's good. Well,
Well, I'm
not
not
right now.
back at the gym, but
Yeah, but
I
you
will
will be.
be.
Yeah, once things start settling down a bit. I hope they do, man. Like I don't know about getting all cooped up and stuff. Like speaking about propaganda, I don't know. I do feel like they are blowing this up a little more than necessary, and people are scared and on edge. Last week, I saw. I remember one day I saw so many arguments like between random people. Like I went to Tim Hortons and two people in line were like arguing with each other, impatient, waiting for their coffee. There's an argument going on. Driving away later, I see two people like almost at blows in front of a bank,
Hmm.
and I really like there's a lot of tension in the air, right?
Yes.
And a lot of tension about this COVID thing, and a lot of regulations getting passed down, and a lot of people not necessarily liking them, and a lot of people just adhering to them, and a lot of people who are like you're a terrible person if you're doing these things and that. And there's just so much going on, so much um, fear mixed into it too. I think, like, I do think that the propaganda piece on this has been spiked up for some reason. Like, I do think um, they're trying to get people more like scared, and I don't like the fear and the tension that's going
Yeah.
on there
That's why I try to avoid the news, and I try to avoid
too.
all of this propaganda. Like I wanted to delete my Facebook. I couldn't because I mean I could have deleted my
Yeah.
Facebook, but I have the marketplace where I buy a whole bunch of stuff for like kind of like Craigslist. So I'm like I'm gonna keep it. I might actually delete it and then create a new one. But then when you create a new one, you can't just join the marketplace right away. It's like kind of like you need like a verification for a couple of days or something, maybe a few months. So I might just delete it because like it's so toxic, and a lot of people on there aren't even really your friends. They're just there because like you know them, and then like you were friends, and it's like no, I'm not your friend anymore. It's like I'm not gonna delete you either. I'm just gonna look at you and laugh at all your posts.
Hmm.
You know, it's like
I know
why
what
do
you
I
mean
even
there.
have it? So
Well, I've got such, like I was saying before, I feel like I've got quite a diverse set of friends on Facebook, and
hmm,
I try not to let any of that kind of stuff get to me. I know a lot of people who will go on like Facebook wars and stuff like that, like, comments and stuff like that. I try to stay out of it all. Um, but I'll read people's things, and I do find it funny, like how the amount of people on my Facebook are like either here or like here, like just so think so
divided,
different.
yeah.
and it's part of like you know, that's what I'm liking about this book. It's like reevaluating how we think, right?
Yeah, but I think
And
there are a few people that that honestly get me, that do get me on on my Facebook, like for you for example, and another couple
Mhm.
of like there's a handful of people, and I think that's what we need to cherish the most is those not just those people, but like the things we talk about, like the little things, and like try not to get these things like all the stress to your head. Enjoy yourself, and
Yeah, yeah, I'm
just
trying to
sometimes you
let
just
the stress drop off for
yeah,
sure.
sometimes you just gotta like that's why people go on retreats so they like they refresh, they rejuvenate, and you know,
Hmm.
but you know we
Well,
can't
I'm
do that
really
because of
excited
COVID.
for tomorrow. Um, Monday mornings at this work, which is really cool. I think this is a great idea. We do what's called a smudging ceremony. I'll
Oh
kind of
yeah,
show you some of the stuff
is it
that we.
sage?
What's that?
Is it sage or Palo Santo?
Say, I'll show you the a few of the different
Okay.
medicine. That's what you call it, medicine. So like I grabbed some of it because I'm gonna do some of my own at home because I just like enjoy it so much. And they said, yeah, take as much as you want. So like in a seashell,
Mm-hmm.
you put this is um, sweetgrass, it's called,
Yeah, I have sweetgrass spray over there,
and
but
then
it's
yeah,
I like sweetgrass. It smells nice.
and sage
Sage, yeah.
and cedar.
Cedar, yeah, yeah.
So these are three of like the traditional tribal medicines. The other one's tobacco,
Mm-hmm.
um,
How is your
and then
smoking quitting going, by the way?
not very good, not very good. Sometimes it's going okay. The beginning of the month was going pretty well, and then this last week, how I told you, is just a really emotional week, and doing this practicum and just like going from school, finishing school Friday
Mm-hmm.
to like a job Monday, you know, at this place, like in a place where I kind of stick out like a sore thumb,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was pretty stressful. I like, you know, I'm not gonna lie. The last 2 weeks have been very, very stressful actually. And
Okay. Yeah.
so yeah, I definitely have been smoking.
But you use the feather to like spread
It's like
the
it's like wafting, yeah.
yeah.
And so when we do this, um, like she'll burn it and she'll blow. We'll all kind of stand in the different directions and send like positive energy towards all our relations, like north, south, east, west, the four sacred directions, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then we pass it along to each other. So like you'll go up to the next person and you'll start wafting it on them, and they will take the smoke and like put it over their eyes and ears, and it's supposed to like it. I could actually say,
It cleanses your aura.
yeah, and it's supposed to what it's supposed to really do. Like it says right here, yeah. So it cleanses our eyes, like so for each one, like cleanses our eyes so that they will see the truth around us, the beauty of our mother, the earth, the gifts given to us by our Creator, and the love shared with us through our families, friends, and communities. We cleanse our mouth so that all that we speak will be truthful, said in a way that will empower the positive, only good things, and always full of words of praise and thanksgiving for our Creator. Like so, it's like this idea of yeah, you get the idea, and so you'll put it over yourself, and then you'll turn around and they'll waft it on you up and down your body, and then you pass it on to the next person. It's really beautiful. It's great.
Yeah, you can smudge your whole house. Like you could like house smudging is very common.
Oh yeah.
Meditation while smudging is very common. Like I smudge like to smudge you could also smudge like items. Like you could smudge crystals. A lot of people do that in
Oh
metaphysics.
okay.
So like to cleanse a crystal there's many different ways, but smudging is I think is one of my more favorite ways of doing it because it's very very effective. Um and also with the full moon also you can smudge crystals with the full moon's light, so you put your crystals out during the night of a full moon and it like recharges them, so like you can feel the energies from them like subconsciously
Mm.
when you do a lot of cleansing. I haven't done it in a while so I need to do that, but
Yeah, I want to
definitely
start doing it.
definitely, even cleansing your house, you can feel like you can just feel like there's a lot less tension in the house.
Mhm.
Like after a bad argument, you smudge and you feel way better. Trust me.
Mm. Hmm.
And
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
sound
need to get on it.
when you're explaining that, when you're explaining smudge, you sounded a lot like the guy from the metaphysical store that I really want to take you to, because
Mm.
he's very 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 uh knowledgeable on this type of stuff. So
Mm. Cool. Yeah, we should go. That'd be fun.
yes, yeah,
Like a little field trip.
yeah, and I go
I
there.
love those stores too.
I
They're
go there.
so much fun.
Yeah, I go there quite often, but I haven't gone there in a while. So we'll
Which
go.
one? Is it the one
I'm
on
not.
the corner of
Don't name it. But
Okay.
we'll go there.
Mm.
Go
Sure.
there.
Okay, cool. Well, you know what, Sean? I think maybe we should just wrap this up. That was a good amount of time,
Yeah,
and
sounds
we get
good.
there.
I don't know when we're gonna do another one, but probably we'll try and get back on this fairly sooner than later. We took a
Yeah,
long break. We'll put a little intro in the into the beginning of
yeah.
this.
We've been taking it pretty easy, it seems, but I've been super busy, so um, my apologies. But
Hmm.
the Zoom's pretty easy, just squeeze in an hour here and there. Like I can find time, right? Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, like even next week we could probably do one.
yeah. Next week or the week after doesn't matter.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for
Okay.
watching, listening to
Yeah.
the metaverse.
Thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.